Link in the description.
I do believe in like adaptation, animals like, adapting to the environment. What I'm not so keen on is speciation. I don't really believe in like an animal turning into another animal and then being unable to then like reproduce with the previous animal and that being a full system. So like for instance, like a liger or a mule, like I see no evidence of those things actually becoming other animals and making other offspring. They cannot reproduce with horses or donkeys.
That's not how hybridization is not how speciation happens in the wild, except with plants. It's basically known to be a pretty common phenomenon among plants. But what happens is species evolve the exact same way languages evolve.
This is not a good analogy, by the way. Someone tried to use this analogy before. Let's hear him out first. Someone told me to stop interrupting so much. So whoever that was, thank you for the constructive criticism. I'm taking it right now.
Before modern Portuguese and modern Spanish existed, there was a large population of people that spoke whatever the ancestral language for both of those is. But one of those groups of people ended up on the far west side of the Iberian Peninsula. The rest stayed in Spain, Catalonia, or whatever those different areas are called. And because there was not so much back and forth between them, because those groups of people were separated, the microscopic ways in which people just kind of naturally change the language generation after generation.
This is a bad... Peterson, you probably won't see this. Maybe this will be made into a clip. This is a bad analogy. The reason this is disanalogous is because language, the sounds and the words and the written symbols change, but the referent doesn't change. This is why this is disanalogous. There is a universal that's being pointed to as a reference. So if you say, well, languages change, the sounds coming out of people's mouths change. It doesn't follow. Someone tried to use this, right, in a Discord debate against me once. And then they ran when I caught them on this. I said, no, the thing you're referring to doesn't change. The language, the sounds can change, but there's something that's maintains. The apple, the thing you're referring to, stays the same. This is why if someone tries to use this on you, Peterson, you should stop doing this. We're going to figure it out. I've already figured it out. The meaning, right, the referent and the reference, these are two different things. Language refers to a referent. The referent doesn't change. So this is disanalogous because in evolution, you're actually referring to the referent changing. Not the reference. The referent itself. The apple wasn't an apple. The pig once wasn't a pig. A human being was once derivative of something that wasn't a human being. This is not analogous, but go on.
All those microscopic changes, those micro mutations, accumulate over huge numbers of generations to the point where the languages are completely different now.
Mm-hmm.
The poor caller doesn't know how to jump in right now. He should have.
There is hybridization in languages that occurs. They're called creoles, and those are really fascinating, but that's a completely different sort of thing as well. So, no, I mean, people don't really have a great sense because I guess it just isn't taught very well.
No. If someone's going to teach it and try to use language as an analogy, they're definitely not teaching it well then. Steelborn says for $5, Evotards can't explain phenomenon such as island gigantism, like the Kodiak grizzly bear, or island dwarfism, the dwarf reticulated python. Well, they have to basically say, Steelborn, everything that you see that's an effect is just caused by some type of mutation that occurred generations before. And the only reason we see it is because it happened to accidentally provide some sort of survival mechanism. And all of the things that we don't see today are dead because whatever that phenomenon was didn't support its survival. That's it. It's all it wasn't. They don't even take the approach that mutations happen for survival, right? Like a reaction. No, it's that mutations happen, even though 99% of all mutations are just like, sort of benign replication of existing information, and do nothing. They do nothing. There's nothing that's added or lost, in the near term. And they were basically like, well, if that happens over and over again, maybe a wing is grown or something. It's like, okay, dude.
How
whatever.
two
Cool
species
story.
get, how they get speciated, it almost always happens because of geographic isolation.
Right, and my issue.
See, he's just saying it happens, right? This is the problem with evolution proponents, or is called evotards, is that they just say the thing happened. We're asking, well, how do you actually explain mechanistically what and how things happen? They say, well, it happened.
Here with that though, I mean, we've never witnessed it or observed that ever occurring. And I know you don't.
No,
have to
we
see
have.
something.
What?
Okay, well,
What have we occurred?
The big bird lineage of ground finches in Daphne Major in the Galapagos. The London underground mosquito.
Nope. This is hilarious. So both the finches, any bird you're referring to, and the mosquito, some sort of adaptation or mishap that happens in response or caused by external things, external stimuli or circumstances. It's still a mosquito, dude. It's still, I debated, who was it, Craig or the other guy? I recently, about a couple months ago, debated him, and I was like, so is it not a mosquito anymore? He's like, no. Well, what is it? Is it a bird? What is this thing? Well, they're referring to a mosquito that suddenly, at the population level in a particular place, couldn't reproduce with its surrounding mosquitoes. And so by their standard, that's a new species of caterpillar? No. It's a mosquito. I thought that the majority of mutations are detrimental. Yeah, in the long term, Column Rock, they are. But I'm giving them short term. At least in the short term, what's observable in the short term. But yes, if you get Carpenter, I don't know where he's been, but Carpenter makes this distinction when he used to call in a lot and say, well, actually, in the long term, a mutation is detrimental. It doesn't add stuff. It actually dilutes or it weakens, so to speak. Wondering, Pilgrim 99 Czar, thank you so much. God bless you. Keep up the work you're doing. By the way, why do they all sound like gay? It could be an atheist thing. I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's like the femaling of society. It's like being soft. I don't know. Like Peterson seems like a big guy. He plays guitar. Seems like he could fight probably. Don't know why he sounds like a cheerleader. No idea. Steelborn $5. If Evo is real, then why didn't you evolve to realize how retarded it is?
We've seen that happen. There have been some pretty fascinating experimental, like lab experiments with unicellular organisms where we've taken yeast and actually turned them into a multicellular organism before.
We did that? I'm sorry. So you manipulated existing things. How does it follow that a deer came from not a deer because yeast at the molecular... This is what they do. They do composition fallacies. They think what's true of the part must be true of the whole. That's what they do. They look at a baby growing in the womb. You never had access to it. The more we learned about what it looks like for a baby to grow in the womb, the more it looks like to them that an animal is changing in real time. And then they extrapolate the baby from conception, growing a tail, or having a tail, and then not having a tail. And then they're like, that must have happened over a billion years. Well, no, that's just taking a particular event and then falsely or erroneously extrapolating it onto a massive event. That's all they're doing. He's doing it right now with yeast. He's taking a particular chemical reaction where he sees something alters, and he's saying, well, if that alters, therefore, chicken dinosaur, therefore, muskrat elephant. No, that doesn't follow.
And that clearly can't be the same organism the experiment started with.
So here's my thing, right? So I've actually had this debate with other people, and every time I look into this, most of the time, it never really explicitly stated that the thing cannot reproduce. So, for instance, with the Galapagos thing, I have seen no study saying those cannot reproduce with the other finches that grew the longer beaks. I've never seen that study. They choose not to. That happens, but they can't.
Yes. Well, but that is one of the definitions of a species. And again, we wouldn't expect, like, this would not be evolution. An animal gives birth to an animal that is radically different from it, so different that it can't reproduce with any member of the rest of the population. That's not evolution, right? Because that obviously wouldn't work, because then no species could form, because everything born is reproductively incomplete.
And by the way, species itself can't be a thing under evolution. This is not a species itself is not a universal thing. It can't be, because whatever you're calling a species is only temporarily an ostensible universal category, but a changing thing. So if it's changing, it's an illusion to say there's a deer, there's lions, there's these kinds. That's not true under evolution. An honest evolution proponent, like I've debated J.F. Gariepy, he admits this. He says, you are correct. It is true. Evolution, if evolution is true, which it is, there is no such thing as an actual species. This is arbitrary.
Compatible. What happens instead is you get a kind of speciation where the organisms, through behavior or morphology or whatever, simply the vast majority of the time don't reproduce, or maybe they just factually never do because of like geographic separation. But that separation they have, we can't observe them for thousands of years, and animal reproduction for the most part is at a pace where that is the amount of time you'd have to be observing them to really see it. But we see the initiation of that all the time.
So I can make my claim more narrow than I'm saying, though. There is still what I'm saying is, if an animal chooses not to mate with another animal, fine. But I'm more so directly describing an animal not being able to then, through millions of years of, again, either adaptation or geographical change, not being able to reproduce with the original progenitor. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm claiming. That's never occurred to me.
Well, that's not the kind, again, for the reasons I stated a little bit ago, that's not the kind of thing you would expect us to be able to see. Like, if species could really form in a manner of like a human generation to that degree, that would be a huge problem for evolution, because evolution proposes that these things occur over vast stretches of time, not very quickly. That would be really inconvenient for us, actually, because that would...
No, let's reverse it. It's actually really convenient for you that your claims can only be true across long periods of time. Now, that's the only way it could happen, right? Right. So the only way it could happen is if it happened over a long period of time. The problem is you can't say then you observe what you're claiming, right? Which, if it only could happen over a period of time that you can't observe. You can't have both of those, Peterson. All you can have is, small, what you think is a microcosm, some sort of small particular iteration that you that you think is happening at a larger scale, and just admit you can't possibly know or prove it. I just wish evolution proponents would just say, you know what? I'm going to try to defend my reasoning that this long form transition between non-existing species, just animals, particulars, like changing in real time. I'm going to try to defend that it's reasonable to use some sort of inductive principle to say, well, we see yeast turn into this, we see this turn into that at the microscopic, therefore it happens at the macro. I just can't tell you. I can't know that it does.
Would, in a way, it would kind of be support for the Noah's flood.
Jameson, $5. They mock us, and then they say, except a deer-like animal turned into a whale because it decided to go swimming. It's just wild, dude. He's like, oh, Jonah and the whale, this is crazy. And you're like, you literally believe... Should I bring up what they believe? I mean, it's crazy. The animation is insane.
Narrative of at least how the world got populated with over 1 million species when there were clearly only a few.
Draco says, evolution theologists are fun conversations. Yeah, I have these debates all the time. I've debated Redeem Zoomer on it, and I recommend you go watch that debate, because whenever I see the Christian specifically, the Christian, not just the theist, the Christian specifically, argue for evolution the way it's presented today, there's a defeater. The defeater is this. Christianity holds dogmatically that Christ, the second person of Logos, God of the Godhead, incarnated as a human. That means human means something. That means human is a universal category of a creature. If evolution was true, what you call a human is in flux. There's no such thing as a human category. There's just the temporary iteration you're calling human until it's no longer human. And there was a iteration that wasn't human that preceded this current form. So which universal category did Christ assume in his nature as a creature? You know, what was it? Well, under evolution, they have to hold a nominalist view, which is funny because evolution proponents are often not theistic, not Christian. They're often atheistic and naturalistic. And yet they kind of borrow a Hindu-like view of life itself, which is like this sort of transformative thing that's nominal, always changing, and there's nothing rooted in anything. It's always in flux. Well, if you believe Christ, the second person of the Godhead, was incarnate as human, and not only that, but his humanity killed resurrection, trampling death itself. If you believe that, there is no healing for humanity. Like, there's no healing process. There's no healing the sickness of humanity. When you go to church, you're not actually healing something that's sort of tied to the human condition, because there is no human category. It's always in flux. Further, I got Redeem Zoomer to bite the bullet and say that human nature could have been found in a donkey. And this is what they do to defend evolution from a Christian perspective. You can't get away from the defeater I just gave. But also, there's another issue: is that you actually reject the triadic aspect of being human, mind, body, and soul or spirit. Without the body, you can't fulfill on your Christian duties. So someone like Redeem Zoomer, if you guys ever debate your friends about this and they're Christian and they're still like pressured kind of into an evolutionary view, you ask them, if human beings morphed over the next like whatever million years, and it just so happened to be the case that Christ still didn't return for judgment, isn't it logically or it's not well, it's logically possible and practically possible from that view that when Christ returns with his human-like body, human form, he's looking at a bunch of platypus-looking creatures that were once human, and they're still trying to like conduct and they're trying to do worship and do Chrysostom's liturgy. And they're preparing the Eucharist, and they're holding it with their little claws and their bills, or they're pooping everywhere. I mean, that Redeemed Zoomer actually was like, yeah, there's no problem. What's the problem?